Good evening, everybody. This is Casper from the Tropical Weather Threat Society bringing you our nightly update. And we have had some pretty significant changes within some of the discussion and forecast track for Tropical Storm Melissa. All folks currently in the watch areas should rush preparations to completion. Not even granted, it's going to hang around for a little while, but this storm is also going to grow dramatically in intensity as we get into headed towards this weekend, getting into early next week. So, as you can see here from the main page of the National Hurricane Center, Melissa is the only show in town. There's nothing else out there. There's a highlighted area of interest in the Eastern Pacific that we will discuss way later here tonight. Taking a look at the most recent satellite, we've got this here in the mesoscale loop. So, each one of these frames are representative of 1 minute. So we're trying to get the latest information and data as it's coming in, at least from a satellite perspective. As you could see with this churning and bubbling of a lot of these showers and thunderstorms here, this is a very formidable area of mid-level circulation, not the surface circulation. But once all this kind of lines up vertically, this has got all the telltale signs of becoming a generational storm. And it is not any better than what we were looking at yesterday. Actually, today it looks worse as far as the intensity potential and the threat potential goes. So as of the 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time advisory, Tropical Storm Melissa was located at 14.4 north, 74.3 west, approximately 320 miles south-southwest of Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and about 300 miles southeast of Kingston, Jamaica. Maximum sustained winds 50 miles an hour. Currently moving west-northwest at a paltry 2 miles an hour. Minimum central pressure down to 1,000 millibars. We did not have any changes with this advisory, and we still have a hurricane watch in effect for the southwestern peninsula of Haiti from the border of the Dominican Republic to Port-au-Prince. And we also have a tropical storm watch in effect for Jamaica. I do expect that to eventually be upgraded to a hurricane watch, but the storm track may keep that delayed for a little while. Tropical storm watch, definitely. Hurricane watch, that may be just a little bit. Now, hazards affecting land. Please keep in mind that this is not the full impact of this storm. This goes out 5 days, folks. This storm is going to be around longer than 5 days. So what we are seeing, there's going to be more added to this as we get into subsequent advisories over the coming days. Hazards affecting land. Right now, the wind conditions, obviously we have a hurricane watch in effect, we have a tropical storm watch in effect. Those conditions are possible, through possible for Haiti beginning on Friday. Tropical storm conditions could begin in Jamaica late Thursday or Friday. Our rainfall. Now, this is not all of it. Melissa is expected to bring 5 to 10 inches of rain to the southern Dominican Republic, southern Haiti, and eastern Jamaica through Saturday. With locally higher amounts possible. Additional heavy rainfall is possible beyond Saturday. However, uncertainty in Melissa's track and forward speed reduces confidence in exact totals. Significant, life-threatening flash flooding and numerous landslides are possible. And that's kind of the rainfall possible beyond Saturday, that's where we really start to get into our significant flash flooding event. Across Puerto Rico, northern Dominican Republic, northern Haiti, and western Jamaica, 2 to 4 inches of rain is expected through Saturday. Flash and urban flooding will be possible through at least Saturday. And for the surf, if you are on a Caribbean facing beach, I don't care if you're in South America, Eastern Caribbean, Western Caribbean, Northern Caribbean, if that beach faces the Caribbean, don't get in the water. Just don't. Because what this is going to become, don't do it. Just don't. Look at it, enjoy it from a distance. Our forecast track. Now, if you remember what we were talking about yesterday, when we seen our forecast track coming in here and splitting kind of the gap in the distance between Jamaica and the southwestern peninsula of Haiti. We now have this coming northward, and then sometime here on Saturday begin to make that turn as it has missed that first window going out. Now, the GFS is still calling for that, but the GFS has become an outlier compared to many of the other models themselves. So, and it really doesn't matter what solution that we look at, whether it be the quick intensification, Cat 1, Cat 2, headed towards the Dominican Republic and Haiti here over by Hispaniola like the GFS is calling for. It doesn't matter what solution we come up with. It doesn't. There's going to be catastrophic impacts somewhere. Taking a look at our spaghetti plots, as you could see, the GFS, again, the outlier right here, that's the GFS. The other most eastern kind of track would be then the H-Wharf. That's right there. The rest of them, all bring it out this way, and then we figure it out from there. But it stalls it in this region right here. That, folks, when we get through all of this, and I show you why that is critical, just keep in mind that that's, we'll call it maybe 100 miles south of Jamaica. You'll see. I'm going to show you. And I'm very, very, very concerned about it. Now, taking a look at the University of Albany and Brian Tang's website. Here we use this to highlight the trends in the models to where we've seen the lighter the color is, the further back it was. The darker the color it is, that means it is, more recent at that point. Being with the darkest color here, with the current official forecast track. Now, this is where things get very interesting because we're going to go through the trends. And we're going to start with the GFS. If you take a look here, the GFS says that this system is never, ever, ever going to get west of 75 degrees. Ever. It has been consistent with this. And if this turns around to be the correct scenario, it would be unlikely because all of the other models are kind of going against it. This, with the particular, persistence of this with the GFS, if this doesn't materialize, this would be categorized as a complete failure by the GFS, a total failure. So we're going to be watching for that. It'll be very interesting. Now, if we compare that with the Euro. The Euro has this coming out, moving very, very slowly here, just west of 75 degrees west, south of Jamaica, but maybe just far enough north to miss a loop current that's down there. And we're going to go over all this. But there's a very, very high area of oceanic heat content south of Jamaica and west of Jamaica as well. So we really have to run that fine line with this. But as you can see, the Euro, 6 days over the open waters, with probably 3 days of that being in some 2 to 3 days of that being in some really, really prime developmental conditions. And I know that rapid intensification is now called for in the discussion, but that might be conservative. If we look at the UK Met, the UK Met is, I don't know what this thing is thinking. It has constantly shown just nothing but a straight westward track. And it's been steady on that the entire time. I really have no idea what it's thinking. The Canadian model, as you can see, been drifting further and further westward, gets it a little bit uncomfortably close over here to northeastern Nicaragua and eastern portions of Honduras, and then also potentially on the kind of the turn back to the northeast, potentially impacting parts of the Grand Cayman, central Cuba, and then obviously into parts of the Bahamas. The overall size of this storm, if it were to track something similar to what we see with the Canadian, there could be some peripheral impacts to portions of the Keys in southern Florida. And when I say peripheral, rain bands at that point. We're not looking at super supreme catastrophic winds, but it could get a little interesting with some peripheral impacts. Direct impacts, very, 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 very low. And the peripheral impacts could be mitigated as well due to the fact that there will be a great amount of shear present as this is beginning to draw off to the north and to the east. So it remains to be seen, but we may get a rain band that rotates up into southern Florida if it takes a more westerly track. As far as the H-Wharf is concerned, again, as we noted there, you could look. The H-Wharf was following a lot with the GFS and now has kind of shifted out, still wants to run the gap between Haiti and Jamaica and making a beeline for eastern portions of Cuba as it is beginning to turn. But notice it turns early. We're here 96, 120 hours, and that is catching the second frontal boundary, which is a shortwave trough. It won't have a lot of punch to it, but the overall intensity would need to be quite high to be able to catch that. Well, H-Wharf wants to bring it, category high-end, category 3. If we look at the H-Mon, the H-Mon wants to drift this out, basically kind of just meandering around, maybe a little bit of a loop, whatever it wants to do, 120 hours, still out here, no land interaction, went well over the area of the warm core subsurface vorticity that is out here, or eddy, and as a result of that, you have Cat 4 and still rising. Now we get into the very interesting point of the program, and I'll be honest with you, I thought very seriously about using the Model Lab and pulling up halves here tonight and showing everybody just the overall rain from halves, not the intensity or the pressure, but this is what we don't want to happen. As you can see here, it comes up, pulls a little bit north, and then drifts westward very slowly in that region of that subsurface eddy. It also ends up in some very, very conducive upper level environmental conditions, and then it turns around and turns into a Category 5. Category 5 is not off the table with this storm. Matter of fact, Category 4 to 5 is highly likely. Highly likely. Now, as you can see, Halves A wants to tap out here around 150 knots. Well, Halves B shows something very similar to the track of Halves A. As you can see, there's not much difference at all. They're both in decent agreement. on track. On intensity, halves B goes absolutely nuts. I got all types of words that I could use for that. That's insane. You're looking at somewhere around the range of 100, in between 170 and 175 knots. Halves B is basically showing a rivaling storm that would definitely have wind gusts well in excess of 200 miles an hour. Well in excess of 200. Hold on 1 second, folks. Come on. Come on. I had a visitor. We have Storm Dog Jr. in here. She wanted to come in. She heard all the excitement in here and decided that it was time for her to come in and get the forecast as well. Now, the forecaster's discussion. We are going to read the paragraphs 2 and 3 in its entirety. Paragraph 1 is their verification of maintaining their intensity with the 5 p.m. advisory. Paragraph number 2. Melissa has taken a short-term jog westward as it became exposed, but now appears to be resuming a very slow west-northwestward motion at 290 degrees at 2 knots. The track reasoning remains similar to the previous forecast over the next two to 3 days, with the forecast storm structure likely to have a significant role in the future track. Dynamical models that show the storm becoming more vertically aligned and deep, GFS and HWRF, show Melissa turning north or northeastward due to the westerly deep layer steering into a weakness induced by a broad upper level trough located over the Bahamas. However, models that show Melissa remaining more shallow and misaligned, the Euro and halves AB, maintain a northwestward or north-northwestward component of motion. Compared to this morning, the track guidance has shifted slower and farther west, possibly due to the farther west initial position. The NHC track has been shifted westward and is also a little southward after 60 hours, but remains farther north and east of the Euro and halves model this cycle. And this is roughly in between the consensus approach HCCA and the Google DeepMind ensemble mean. This track forecast favors the models that keep Melissa weak and less prone to the deep layer steering over the next 24 to 48 hours. However, this remains a low confidence track forecast other than Melissa maintaining a slow motion for the majority of the period. Now, here they mentioned the consensus approach, the HCCA. This is why I bounced forward. If we look at the HCCA's consensus, it runs up, turns to the left, shoots the gap between the Caymans and Jamaica, and is headed for portions of eastern Cuba. Gets really close to little Cayman and Cayman Brock right here. That would have the potential to bring some catastrophic impacts. All the way across the board. We're talking wind, surge, rain, you name it, you get it. This storm is not going to be trifled with at all. This one's not to be played with. As you can see, Category 4 intensity on the HCCA's consensus. Now, if we look at the other consensus, the TVCN, this one is a little different. This one weighs the GFS and the HWRF a little heavier. And as you can see, that in itself wants to bring and maybe along the eastern tip of Jamaica and then running it out. But that again, that remains to be seen. The best one that we're going to have is going to be the official National Hurricane Center's forecast. And if you really want to look at if you don't have access to the HCCA and you're looking for, like if you're going to depend upon a model or something, the Google DeepMind has been performing marketably the best this year so far. It's been a very, very welcomed addition, especially now that what we're dealing with. Paragraph number 3 from the forecaster's discussion. The current vortex misalignment of Melissa is a significant impediment to short-term intensification, and the vertical wind shear is expected to maintain this tilted structure over the next 24 to 36 hours. Although I cannot preclude any center reformations down shear like what occurred last night. After this period, the Euro ship's guidance now indicates that the ongoing westerly shear will decrease to 10 to 15 knots, and the storm remains over very warm sea surface temperatures and high oceanic heat content. The hurricane regional models have all responded by showing significant intensification after the vortex becomes vertically aligned, sometime in the 60 to 96 hour period, though timing when this may occur is challenging. The intensity guidance is once again higher than the previous cycle, and the NHC intensity forecast was raised once again, showing Melissa becoming a hurricane in 72 hours, rapidly intensifying into a major hurricane by 96, with additional intensification likely thereafter. This forecast is in the best agreement with the HCCA intensity aid, but it is worth noting it is under the latest HAVS A, B, and HMON forecasts. Unfortunately, it is becoming increasingly likely that Melissa will become a large and dangerous hurricane by the end of the forecast period, which is only 5 days. If we look in 5 days, they're calling for 130 miles an hour, category 4 system. But here's the thing. In 72 hours to 96 hours, we are looking for that rapid intensification cycle to begin. I'm going to be honest with you folks. And we don't see it. It's not shown here on the National Hurricane Center. But I'm not going to at least not mention the fact that if it already rapidly intensified 24 hours prior, you would then anticipate that if it's still in good development conditions, that the rapid intensification is not going to stop. 130 miles an hour, we're going to gain 35 miles an hour from day 3 to day 4, but only 15 miles an hour from day 4 to day 5? Let's think about that. I don't think so. Now, our wind speed probabilities, we mentioned last night that we're going to be keeping a very close watch on this to see if we've got any trends. We definitely have some trends. Kingston, Jamaica, you're now up to a 59% chance of seeing sustained tropical storm force winds with a 22% chance of seeing those 50 knot or 58 mile an hour winds. Montego Bay, 42% chance of tropical storm force winds with a 13% chance of those 50 knot winds. All our other locations, parts there in Haiti and stuff like that, your numbers are not as high as what we were seeing yesterday. Jamaica, your numbers, though, unfortunately, have increased since yesterday. Our rainfall forecast. Now, again, I am going to have to draw this line because from anywhere inside this black line, and I'm not trying to be exact with it, Anywhere inside that black line is a lower confidence forecast. So, we may see that rainfall total, we may not. It is difficult to say because we don't know exactly where Melissa wants to stumble off to. I mean, this kind of reminds me of, somebody on a vacation that's just kind of overdone itself and is now going to be stumbling around out here into the Caribbean in a raging mess. And just this is bad, folks. This is like really, really, really bad. When we're talking about the rainfall, now we've already looked with the GFS and the Euro. They have two totally different solutions. We have the Euro on the left and the GFS on the right. This is our total precipitation, and I'm going to run this out. And remember, the Euro takes it to the left more towards Jamaica. The GFS wants to take it towards Hispaniola. It doesn't matter what our solution is. It doesn't matter. You can see the GFS by day 7 wants to exit the region. The Euro still has it here, creating massive amounts of rain, and there it goes at day 9. But I don't have to say much more than what these graphics show. Somewhere within this extremely bright purple area located on the GFS, somewhere in here, 74, almost 75 inches of rain. Somewhere in that spot. That might be over water. It might not be on land. But I can tell you that if you look at all those colors right there on land, and then you match it up to this part of the box right here, that's anything in the purple and above is 16 inches. That's bad. The Euro, you thought it got any better? Absolutely not. There's Jamaica, buried in the purples. Eastern Cuba, parts of that buried into the purples. All of this is mountainous terrain, folks. Tropical downpours and elevated mountainous terrain do not mix. Now, with the Euro, we'll show here, it says max 63.5 inches, but that is over the open waters. That's not land. The GFS, I can't guarantee what those totals there are on the Dominican Republic or Hispaniola getting into Haiti. This would be catastrophic. This would be catastrophic. Doesn't matter what, except the one on the left is probably coming with Cat 5 winds. The one on the right, Cat 2. But it seems more plausible that the one on the left is going to be the one that wins out. Our key messages. Now, I set them at the very end of the National Hurricane Center stuff because I just want to make sure that we discuss this as much as possible. Melissa is forecast to meander over the central Caribbean Sea and could potentially become a major hurricane by early next week. Interest in Jamaica, Haiti, Cuba, and the Dominican Republic are urged to continue monitoring the latest forecast. I'm going to add other locations. Caymans, Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, Cayman Brac, Nicaragua, northeast Nicaragua, getting into eastern Honduras. You still need to monitor this as well. Central Cuba, getting into the Bahamas, potentially the Turks and Caicos. Y'all need to watch this as well. Now, their stuff goes out 5 days. I'm trying to give everybody as much heads up as possible. Key message number 2. Due to Melissa's slow motion, the risk of a prolonged period of strong winds, possibly lasting for a day or more, is increasing for Jamaica and the Tiburon Peninsula of Haiti. Preparations to protect life and property should be rushed to completion, since strong winds could begin in those areas as early as late Thursday or Friday and continue increasing over the weekend. It's not going to get any better. Rush preparations to completion, especially on the island of Jamaica. And key message number 3, Melissa is expected to produce heavy rainfall across portions of the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Jamaica through this weekend, bringing a risk of significant life-threatening flash flooding and numerous landslides. And it's only going to get worse from there. All right, now we're gonna dive off into the deep weeds here. We've got from the University of Wisconsin. We are taking a look at a lot of the particulars, Dorvac technique. We're looking at some satellite data, everything 53 knots, 45, 49, 49. So maybe a little bit of increase in intensity. Hurricane hunters will be going out there tonight, and we'll get our first NOAA mission. We've got our current maximum intensity is 163 knots. Still, it's gonna go up, especially if it gets over that loop current. Well, not loop current, but that subsurface eddy south of Jamaica. And there's one west of Jamaica as well. So it really doesn't matter where it goes if it misses this first trough. It's going to let loose and do it in a non-discriminatory fashion. Why do I say that? Here we have the University of Miami Rosenstiel School. What we're looking at here, we have our oceanic heat content. Now, it shouldn't be very difficult to figure out exactly where the storm is going to be and the oceanic heat content that's out there. And if you look, we're watching this area very closely and that area very closely. Why do we say that? Okay, remember that. One south of Jamaica, one just to the west of Jamaica. Let's go back. What we are now going to do is we are going to look at our geostrophic velocity. This is areas of rotation or spin into the subsurface of the water. This highlights our eddies. If you look here, not there. If you look here, we have our rotation right here with a deep warm core eddy right here. We also have our rotation here with another deep warm core eddy right there. So, if that storm were to make contact with either one of those in a good environment for intensification, that's exactly what it's going to do. And it's going to go crazy because even if it's moving slow, do you think you're going to get upwelling at that? Okay, so upwelling means that you're bringing some of that cooler water up from the lower levels up to the surface, and then you're mixing it around with all the wind and the rain and the sloshing and this and that, back and forth. Okay, all right, cool. What we're now showing is the depth of the 26 degrees Celsius isotherm. What that means is that this shows the depth of the waters that go down to around 79, 80 degrees that would be supportive of tropical cyclone activity. Well, let's match it up. There's our one eddy. There's our second eddy. And thankfully, we're not talking about this one. That's the worst one of the entire bunch. But both of these, we're getting into that strong red color. So we know that it is going to be at least to the right of that 125 mark on the legend. But the problem is that's not 125 feet. That's 125 meters. That's hundreds of feet deep. Hundreds of feet deep before you get down to the 26-degree isotherm. So your upwelling is not going to be very much. Now, to kind of give everybody a little bit of a better vision on this, we will click the now. Here we have our trusty green circle. What we are going to do is we are going to highlight our ocean currents. You can very, very easily see exactly where that ocean current is. It's this feature right here with this combined feature all in this region up in here that we've got to watch for. And that's terrible color. Here, we'll just go with some red and then we'll just highlight it. But that's what we're watching for. Let me flip over to the sea surface temperatures. 86.5, 86.2, 86.5, 86.4, 86.6. Let's go over to the west side. 86.5, 87, 87. And this is rocket fuel for tropical cyclones, folks. That's what this is. Especially when you get into an environment that has conducive atmospheric conditions. This thing's going to go absolutely crazy. Now, as far as our vertical alignment goes, here we have the surface. We'll come up to the 850 millibar. We're getting some, stacking there. The 700 millibar, not so much. 500 millibar is starting to tighten up. The one thing that I am noticing is that we keep getting the center kind of rushes out like this, collapses, and then builds back. And what I believe we are seeing right now that the center is moving as slow as it is at the surface, we are finally getting what was the mid-level circulation here starting to rotate around and trying to meet up with the surface. So we could get vertical alignment. That may mean that the GFS solution has some validity, but it's still an outlier right now, and I don't necessarily trust it. As long as it still remains that sheared structure, it is certainly headed off to the west. If we look at the shear, you can see this is about 6 miles up into the atmosphere, and we've got our trusty green circle on where the storm is, and look, all this wind coming out of the northwest and some from the west northwest, creating a very lopsided system. All right, now we are going to get into the ensembles. Here we have the Euro Legacy. And we already know that the Euro favors that more westerly track. We will run this forward. We get to the 48-hour mark. We get now to the 72. There are some Euro ensembles that bring it up to the north and maybe, get it a little too close and to land, and that mitigates intensity. But anything that makes it off to the west, here it comes. Big time. I mean, here we're out. We'll go out 8 days at this point. Big time. That's 10. So big time intensity if this thing crawls to the west. Comparing that to the GEFS. Now, as we run this forward, we know that the GFS has consistently been made up of the Hispaniola track. Well, the ensembles don't seem to agree. As you can see here, we'll run this out 10 days. Now, you could see this one little outlier, two little outliers right here going over Andros Island. Again, they're outliers at this point. Though, if that some similar scenario like that were to occur, we could see peripheral impacts into parts of Florida, southern Florida. But as you can see, there's not a very high probability to that at all. The Euro AI will run this forward. You can see a lot of churning. The majority of them want to go west, and then boom. Now, one thing that I will say with the Euro AI is that for the majority of the season, it's done an absolutely terrible job with intensity. Always usually kind of underplays it, and which really doesn't represent the true breadth of the system itself. So it's there. We see that turn off to the northeast, so that frontal boundary comes in, clears and pretty much protects the majority of the United States. Now, I know folks, and folks may say, what about the East Coast getting up later, later, later? Look, I'm going to be real with you. We don't know where this thing is going in the next 24 hours. I am definitely not going to try to speculate where in the hell this thing is going to go in 10 days. So, I mean, it's just, we're in monitor mode as far as the East Coast. I don't see any credible threats at this time. The Google DeepMind, again, one of the best performing models that we've seen all season long. The Google DeepMind has its mean around a category 3 for Jamaica. So that would be 115, 120 knots that way. But as you can see, that mean is taking in all of these, it's just 5 after 5 after 5 out here to the left, and also averaging in with the ones here moving towards the Dominican Republic and Haiti. So, over the next 24, 48 hours, we're really going to start to get one or the other. We're going to see to where this area getting towards Hispaniola either dies out and cuts off completely, or we're going to see the west side start to drift back more to the east. Unfortunately, we've got a storm sitting out there just a couple hundred miles away from locations and folks, but we don't know. Nobody knows. This is going to be up to the storm itself, and this is the 6Z. Let's see if we can get the 12. Damn it. All right, give me 1 second. We'll come over here to Weather Nerds. We will go to the ensembles, and we will pull up the Google DeepMind, because this is going to be the 12Z. And I'm using the Weather Lab Google DeepMind's official site, which is crazy. So let's slow this down just a little bit, and this is our 12Z run from the Google DeepMind. And as you can see, not very many of them favor that more left track, or that more Hispaniola track. And then here comes just the definition of an absolute nightmare. And yes, again, folks, there's always going to be that one that's 2%. And on top of that, it had to make it all the way to land. It's that far west. It actually made landfall into Honduras. So I'm not too overly enthused with that. Not at all. The majority of the guidance and the ensemble members want to bring this out. And then even when we get it out into the Atlantic, look at the spread. So again, or, up here towards the northeast coast of the U.S., it's too early to tell. Way, 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 way too early to tell. Now, we're going to jump over to our deterministic runs. Euro on the left, GFS on the right. This is representative of our 850 millibar cyclonic vorticity. We are looking for areas of spin here, approximately 5,000 feet or around 1 mile above the ocean surface. So as we run this forward, we will note that there's that great differentiation of the models themselves. The GFS wants to have it much further north over portions of Haiti. The Euro wants to skirt it south of Jamaica. And then, as we saw with the Brian Tang's website, there goes the GFS. That's going. Here comes the Euro starting to turn. We see that, shortwave trough is the one that kind of captures it. And then we've got a reinforcing shot of another low pressure and another trough coming in that really helps to pick this up and really begins to accelerate it. But unfortunately, here at hour 2:16, it slaps Bermuda right in the mouth. Now, again, obviously, it's way too early to make any kind of determinations for anything. We're trying to figure out where it's going to be in the next 24 hours, much less where it's going to be in the next 9 days. So, with all of this drifting and uncertainty and the abilities of the center reformation and stuff like that, there's just a great deal of uncertainty. It is highly recommended for people to monitor this storm closely, stay weather aware, and if you are in the watch areas, rush your preparations to completion because this storm may stick around for a lot longer than anybody's going to want, including yourself. Looking at our humidity, this is, we have the Euro on the left, GFS on the right. We have our 500 millibar level on the top, which is approximately 3.5 miles above the ocean surface, or around 18,000 feet, give or take, a little bit there, depending on the environment. On the bottom two graphics, we have the 700 millibar level. That's approximately around 2 miles above the ocean surface, getting in and around 10,000 feet. So we're looking at that slice of the atmosphere between 10,000 and 18,000 feet, and we want to see where the moisture, represented by our blues and greens, and our dry air, represented by our browns and whites and whatever. So that's what this really does, is it highlights some of that dry air that could be entraining on it or helping to impinge on the system. The problem is that we're not going to have a lot of shear. So it's going to be very difficult. The dry air itself is going to have to rotate within the core, not get junted into the core, not being forced or pushed into the core. So now we're out day 5. If you notice, there comes that first decent frontal boundary. And this is the protector of Florida, basically, and U.S. interests. Now, from there, we'll have to wait and see exactly what goes on, for points further northward. But you could see there is a great amount of dry air out there in the vicinity of this storm. Can it impede on it? I doubt it, because the water temperatures are as warm as they are. That's going to be plenty of fuel to be able to overcome some of that dry air. But if we can keep a little bit of, maybe a dry slot in there and a little bit of entrainment, whatever we can do to keep this thing out of Cat 5 status, I'm good. As long as it's not stalling it over some island out here and it rained for like 4 days straight. I don't want to see that, which is kind of what the GFS showed. Now, our wind shear models, Euro on the left, GFS on the right. This is representative of the winds and their wind speeds and maybe change with height and everything. It is the wind column between 5,000 and 40,000 feet above the ocean surface. So we're looking at like a massive slice of the atmosphere. And what we are looking for is some of that wind shear. Now, we see the subtropical jet to the north of the system. The GFS wants to kind of give it a little bit of a better environment. The Euro still wants to maintain a more tilted structure. Now, here we are out at 72 hours. We know the GFS is stalled over portions of Haiti at this point in time. The Euro is center of circulation, starting to move westward south of Jamaica. And then, all hell breaks loose. Because as you could see, the euro, by the time that we get it down here to day 6, we are at 932 millibars. I can tell you that halves is the reason why I didn't show it. Halves B, and I'll say it, halves B gets this below 900 millibars. And it's not necessarily close to 900 either. So this upper level environment that it would find itself in, creating an upper level anticyclone due to the outflow and the exhaust and the rapid intensification of the system. As you could see, once it starts to move towards Jamaica, you're looking at somewhere in the 930s making impact there to Jamaica, maybe even getting into the upper 920s. That is massively impactful. And then you add all of the rain that would fall for days on end, and then you want to bring potentially Cat 5 winds. I cannot begin to tell you how catastrophic that would be. Like, I would be shocked if there would be many trees left standing, because the saturated soils, the mudslides, landslides, flash flooding, just you name it. You'd have all that saturated soil and then that great wind coming in. So that I'm very, 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 very concerned for the folks in Jamaica. I really am. And as you can see here, even once it leaves Jamaica, look at that. It jumps between Jamaica and eastern Cuba and then bombs pressures again. We're down to 919, smacks into eastern Cuba at 935. And then goes through the Bahamas in the 950s. That's huge. I mean, that would be unbelievably impactful. It just catastrophic, you name it. Whatever verb, adjective, noun, whatever, adverb. I don't open up the thesaurus and just pick one. Just make sure it's bad, because if this does drift west, and really even if it doesn't, I mean, we're looking at the potential of a great loss of life here, folks. We are. We really are. I would be so happy if this results in 0 fatalities, but I'm going to be realistic with you here. I seriously doubt that we're going to get away with this without fatalities. I'm just hoping that the fatalities that we see don't end up, before it's all said and done with, having to use a comma. Yeah. It's that bad. All right. I'm going to leave the MJO graphic up here. I'm going to check for any questions. Yes, Miss Betty. It certainly is. It's... Yeah. Yeah. Prayers, definitely, Miss Martha. I mean, like, this is... You can't... I haven't seen anything like this in a while. The last big time threat that I saw that looked something similar to this, maybe Dorian, because you've got to take in the stall component with it. You got to take the slow motion, the stall component. And the last time that we saw that was with the intensity tied to it, Dorian. I mean, the last other stalling-ish type system that I can think of that just kind of sat and hung out for a while would have been Sally, but didn't have the intensity of what we're looking at here. Now, there could be other storms that I'm missing, but I'm looking for mainly the component of the stall or the extremely, extremely slow movement, and then moving over that subsurface eddy on top of that. And There's some tracks that take it over both. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's catastrophic. I mean, that's all there is to it. I'm gonna be real with you. Um, I don't think we're gonna see Melissa again in 6 years. Just by looking at what we're looking at right now, it's going to be very difficult for this thing to be able to get out of the basin and run into the history books without being retired, honestly. All right. Let me see here. Oh, yes. We've got Velva from Jamaica. Um, yes. Yes, ma'am. It's going to be potentially bad there for Jamaica. And good evening, David. For anybody that may need, we have our Tropical Weather Threat Society meteorological database. I am going to copy that and let me see here. I am going to place that into the chat. There you go, there for anybody there on YouTube. And oh, what'd I do? I screwed up. Hold on, folks. I swear I'm gonna get it out there into Facebook. I think it went. Maybe. Did it go? Ooh, look like it. I absolutely hate this damn thing. I'm on a different monitor, so bear with me, folks. And for our long-term followers, they know. Oh, there it is. All right, we did get it in there. It might pop up twice, folks. There on Facebook. Yep, it did. I didn't see it pop up on my screen there the first time. We'll pin that one, and you guys, there you go. Oh no, David, I'm so sorry to hear that. An undocumented fatality considering the flooding in South America right now. Yeah. Uh, my heart goes out to these people. Man, this is one of those late October storms. If you go back today, back in 1998, there was a tropical depression that developed down there in the Caribbean. Well, that tropical depression, as it continued along over the upcoming days, eventually gained the name Mitch. And for anybody that knows tropical cyclones, especially for the Atlantic Basin, Hurricane Mitch is very, very famous. 1998, and killed thousands and thousands of people across Central America due to persistent, stalled, major hurricane flooding. The thing that and I hate to use this as an example, but this is about the only way to really maybe find something that would be relatable to U.S. residents. What these folks are fixing to go through is going to be similar to what we seen with Helene here last year. That's what we're talking about. That amount of rain in mountainous territories. Now, granted, we don't have the hundreds and hundreds of valleys like we have up there in the Western Carolinas, but it's still going to be that type of water across elevated terrain. Water will always seek the lowest level. So, especially in those river basins, catches, creeks, they could turn into just torrents of running water. And it'd be something that you walk down the street, walk through a park, and you literally just step over or step through. You just walk through. 90% of the time it's dry. It won't be. All right, our MJO forecast. We're currently in phase 3, rotating over towards phase 4, phase 5, which is going to help put some suppressive conditions across the Atlantic Basin. No new tropical cyclone activity is expected. Melissa does look to be the last one. Could we get a little homegrown system, whatever, what have you, afterwards? Maybe. But maybe a subtropical storm from a frontal boundary later on. But as far as like grabbing the light switch and just shutting the main breaker off on the basin, once we get Melissa out of here, it's going to be very difficult to get another tropical cyclone to develop of anything of like significant intensity. And if it does, it's going to be trapped down there in the Caribbean again. But otherwise than that, no, this very well might be the basin's last quote unquote hurrah. All right. Now we are going to check in on the other basins across the world. We are looking at the Eastern Pacific currently. The Eastern Pacific, this thing will not get an area of invest, even though it is trying its hardest to try to wrap around. We would just like an area of invest on it. But currently, the development percentages haven't changed. In I think at least the last 48 hours, it's still 30% chance of development over the next 48 hours and a 70% chance of development over the next 7 days. And even though I don't even pay attention to this thing, um, we'll drop out to the East Pac. It's no threat to land, folks. I mean, like I when I seriously say that I don't even pay attention to that thing, I really mean it. Like, I have not bothered to look at that. There's 10 days. I know what the steering patterns are out there, and you're not drawing this up to land. It's not going to happen. 10 days. I mean, it's nothing. It's not going to Mexico. It's not going to the Baja. It's not going to Hawaii. It's just going to the history books. Even if it does get developed in a name, well, congratulations. You get a certificate of achievement, collect your cookie at the bottom of the ocean. Jumping out to the Western Pacific, and we still have Fengshen out here. This thing is almost gone. Almost. Almost. Got Hainan Island with quite a bit of rainfall, which was something that we were hoping to avoid. But on top of that, it's almost done. It's being sheared to death. It's being ripped apart. A lot of the convection is starting to miss. We have Invest 97W. This has been named an area of tropical depression. Oh, I can't remember the name. From the Philippines. It entered the Philippines area of responsibility. And I, for the life of me, cannot remember the name of that storm. But anyway, it is Invest 97W from the Joy Typhoon Warning Center. And its forecast track is that way. It's headed down back towards Luzon, back down to the south and to the west. We have 95S, S meaning the southern Indian Ocean, 92A, A meaning the Arabian Sea. That is forecast to head in that general direction. 95S is also forecast to follow in the path of Chang'e. Chang'e is starting to fall apart, thankfully. We'll take a quick look at Fengshen here. Very, very wide wind field. This red circle is the note of the tropical storm force wind field. And as you can see, it takes up all of Hainan Island, the majority of central Vietnam, going all the way into the Gulf of Tonkin, back, a few degrees back out into the South China Sea. So very, very wide wind field for only a 35-knot storm. And then with Chang'e out here. Now, as we could see, this is 55 knots. Is forecast to continue, maybe maintaining a little bit of intensity, but start to weakening. This is down from its maximum intensity of 60 knots and will continue to move off to the west and impact parts of eastern Africa while moving north of Madagascar right now. So not really major impacts from wind or surge with this type of with that minimal amount of wind, but we could see some rain. And again, as I said yesterday, I have not checked for any drought or soil moisture conditions out here into eastern parts of Central Africa. Sorry, guys. That's not. I'm stalking this. That's been my focus because I see the writing on the wall. I don't like the writing on the wall because the writing on the wall is basically nothing but like the middle finger emoji. No words, just one picture. And it's the middle finger. That's the writing on the wall right now. And I don't like it. So, folks, I cannot stress this enough. Please rush all preparations to completion if you are in Jamaica. I cannot stress this enough. And if folks here on Hispaniola, I would, especially the Haiti side, getting into the southwestern peninsula there, the areas that are located in the hurricane watch, I would rush preparations to completion as well. We're going to know more. There's a very short window of time with this, about 24, 48 hours. If this thing doesn't hook off to the northeast and try to tear up into Hispaniola, well, then the stage is set for this to turn into a generational monster that could rival records in one way or another, whether it be wind speed or minimum central pressure. That will all depend upon the diameter of the eye itself. If it's very, very small, only a couple miles wide, we're going to see wind speeds that we haven't seen in a very long time. This is good. If the center of circulation is probably about 4 or 5 miles wide, this is going to have a very good chance of becoming the strongest storm on the planet for 2025 so far this year. So let's hope I'm wrong. But I don't see. Again, the writing on the wall is nothing but a big giant middle finger when I look at it right now. So, things could change if we get a center reformation. That could shift some of the track. That could shift, it back to the east a little bit. Maybe gain a little bit of vertical alignment, and then changes the forecast track. That's something that we cannot predict as a center jump. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to have to kind of hold on and wait and see what this thing looks like in the morning. Speaking of tomorrow we will start our emergency live stream coverage. I am looking at going, I know for a fact we will go live at 6 p.m., our normal time, and we will be going live at 10:45 p.m. tomorrow night. I am trying, and I believe I am going to aim for about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. This way we'll go over some of the morning data. I can't hang out for an extraordinarily long time at 9 o'clock in the morning. I've still got morning things that I've got to get done. But we'll definitely do a 9, a 6, and then a 10:45. And if it gets really, really bad, we'll go 9, say 1, 6, and 11, or 10:45. All times Eastern, by the way, that I just named. So the maximum that we can really do is about 4 lives a day, and that causes me to have to clear my entire schedule. But all life is precious. I don't care if I got to clear my schedule, as long as if any of our efforts save one life, every single thing was worth it. All of the live streams that I've done all year long, all of the hours of studying and over the years, everything, it's all worth it. All it takes is one. So, with that, everybody, I am going to go ahead and jump off here tonight. I've got to get in contact with the team for our post-live conference call. I will be back live tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. So until then, folks, please stay weather aware. Everybody into the watched areas, please rush your preparations to completion. And we will talk to you bright and early tomorrow morning. Have a great night, everybody.